What are your key policies?
Three things. I believe our education needs to change because we are still in a 50-year-old system. Our education has not really understood the needs of the future or today for that matter. Enough of these far left economic policies or far right laissez-faire economic policies. We need to find a middle ground that suits us as Sri Lankans. Most importantly, I cannot stress this enough. We need to build a better society, not only for our women and children, but for everyone. 80% of the women and children that take public transport in this country or walks on the roads, 80% gets harassed mentally, physically or verbally. Every day we have to change our legal system. We need to have harder laws. More than that, we need to teach our kids from childhood. They need to be better citizens and think of each other. That whole thing, inda hitana ratak, like you walk on the roads, this is not a inda hitana ratak, forget, not because of the economy or the other situations. It's about the way our people are, right? This needs to change, and I think politicians, the government needs to take an active stand in this. And
You're watching Conversations with Alanki. Now, there's a greater call for young and new faces to enter politics and to change the current and existing political system of Sri Lanka. This time, people hope to bring in those who will actually walk the talk, who will deliver, and who will keep their promises. Now, among the many new faces contesting the general election this month, Anuradha Wimalaratne is one of them. However, he's not entirely new, even though he would be new to Parliament. He has almost 14 years of experience in politics, having been elected to the Colombo Municipal Council in 2011 and was one of the youngest CMC members at that time. And he has been a provincial councillor as well. Now, he will be contesting as a member of the SJB from the Colombo district. Welcome.
thank you for having me.
I hope I got all of that right.
Yep.
But firstly, before we talk about current affairs and politics, tell us a little bit about yourself. You have a degree in political science and finance, and you received your education abroad. What else would you like to share with the audience?
First of all, thank you for having me. I was a scholar to Royal, then did my O-levels at Royal, then London A-levels at British School, then higher studies in Japan and US in political science and finance. Then I had like a stint of about, almost 10 years doing businesses in Japan, Australia and few other countries. In 2011, as you said, I was one of the youngest CMC members to get elected, and within a very brief period, I was elected to the Western Provincial Council as one of the youngest representatives, and the first one and the only one to get elected from my electorate, which is Colombo East, very small electorate. So very proud of that. Then in that 14 years, from that day to today, my biggest thing and the thing I'm most proud of is I have remained even without an allegation of corruption or misconduct. I have done that, and yeah, that's like a small allegation where I went up against my former leader, Mr. Ranil Wickramasinghe, because I felt he was not representing the best interest of the people. But that's the only allegation I have. They tried to kick me out, but they couldn't because I was actually representing my people, which I believe is the number one responsibility of a people's representative.
All right. So you represent, you're a member of the SJB now. So I have a question for you now. The presidential election just concluded and Andrakumar Dissanayake from the NPP was victorious. What do you think is the reason for this, despite SJB having an experienced team?
Last election, Alanki, let's just be honest. I think we had the best team. We had the best policies. We not only told what we were going to do, we actually told how we are going to do it. Whereas NPP gave very brief promises without any plan or how they are going to implement their policies.
Right.
It was like, it could be one reason, could be our people really don't want to know how things are done. They just want it done immediately. And I think after a while you realize there are no immediate solutions. And I think in this past month, people are starting to realize there are no immediate solutions. And no matter what they said, they're having a hard time delivering, because 90% of the things that they said were unachievable, or at least unachievable in the short term. And they actually don't even have the know-how and the capability of how things work and how the systems work in Sri Lanka and how systems can be changed. And the other thing, this is something that we really have to admit, even our people, like the people who would usually vote center right, they were not happy with the politicians that have been in this country in, let's say, in the past 30 years. It was more or less, as I see it, it was a protest vote. And like that you could easily see it from the people who didn't turn out to vote. I think around 3.8 million. This last election was one of the lowest polled presidential elections of the country. So I think people wanted to teach our stream of politicians a lesson, and lesson learned. But I think if they go this way, another incapable team will come in, and that's going to affect the whole country.
So what do you think? I mean, you just said that that people actually wanted, it was a vote against the current politicians. Do you think SJB is adapting to provide people with the solutions they need?
Alanki, this is the thing. As I told you before, we have a plan, right? And we have a very capable team, and we have told how we are going to implement our policies. So people need to really look at that. And I think the biggest thing people are asking for right now, and I think rightfully so, people want a new generation of politicians in parliament. That's why this whole thing about youngsters, educated, which is great. And I think that is what needs to happen in every party, not only in our one, but in all the parties. I think it needs to happen, because one thing, if the political culture is to change, you need to change the people who are running the culture, even inside my party, right? And the next thing is, as the people are wanting, we need new people to take this up and keep going. So we have fielded a superb team, a mix of experienced old guard, but mainly there are a lot of young, bright candidates, especially if you take the Colombo list, like all 21, we can say are superb candidates. That has a lot of old people with corrupt and questionable backgrounds. And let's say the NPP, they were talking a big game about how young people should be in politics. And if you really look at their list, there are no young people. And they were one of the people that was crying the hardest against nepotism. And you see father and son contesting, husband and wife contesting.
Absolutely.
So all that is happening. And if people compare, I think we have one of the best all-around list, along with a lot of young, capable new faces.
All right. I mean, you just touched upon nepotism right now, and I think you made a very valid point. You don't come from a political background, and you don't have any direct links to politics. However, it is quite apparent that the system right now favors relatives of politicians, and also those who are able to spend a lot of money on campaigns. How do you feel about this? Because I'm not against relatives of politicians engaging in politics. However, what is going around, what I've been hearing, is that political parties seem to favor relatives of politicians, like children of politicians.
This is the thing.
Do you think that system should change?
What you said is correct, right? I don't think, like being related to someone should matter.
Right.
If you are someone who's capable
of making a change
and delivering on your promises, and if you are someone who's capable of making this country a better place,
Right.
I think everyone should have an opportunity.
Right.
So now they're acting against it. But this is the thing, as you said, I think it shouldn't be a problem. But the thing is, if you are someone that is just coming in, or if you're just getting the nominations because you are related to someone, and if you're someone who's not capable, and if you have a tainted past, especially on how you behaved with your father's or uncle's power in the past, then I don't think you should be in that position. But at the end of the day, political parties can only give nominations. Electing people are done by the public.
Right.
So it has been a trend like that, and people have been electing people like that. Hence, political parties are giving nominations because, or at the end of the day, all they care about is how much votes they can get, what's the percentages that they can get. So
Right.
until the people change and actually stop voting for people like that and teach these political parties a lesson, political parties will keep doing the same thing and this system won't change.
All right. Now, let's talk about Sri Lanka's parliament. I mean, the composition of parliament, which consists of numerous ministers and state ministers. We have a very large parliament. How do you see this? Is this necessary?
Well, if you take numbers roughly, I think there is a parliament member representing 100,000 people, 225 members,
Right.
around 22 million population, right? So, and even from that, I think 29 comes from the national list, 196 elected members.
Right.
I think that is a fair number, especially, public representation wise. 100,000 people being represented by one person. Maybe it can change, or maybe the number can be more, that's okay. But the number of ministers, definitely way too much. And the perks that the ministers get are totally unreasonable for a small country like this. And we just really don't need a cabinet or a set of ministers that much. Ideally, I'd prefer 15 cabinet members and maybe maximum of 10 line ministers.
Right.
So that is more than enough. There are countries that operate with less, right? So I think that is what should happen. And another thing that should change is this preferential voting system. We really need to go back to the old system where actual smaller group of constituents can directly pick their representative.
Right.
If you do it that way, people won't be able to spend millions of rupees and get elected even if they are bad people. Best example is in Colombo. People in your electorate might hate you because they know who you are. But if you have money, you can go all over the rest of the electorates, spend money, get votes, and keep getting elected. So that's how the wrong person keeps getting elected all the time.
Sure. So my next question is, if the SJB secures a majority in parliament, is the SJB ready to work with the president who's from the NPP, given that the two ideologies are very different?
Well, when we get elected, because for us to win, we don't need any votes from the 42%.
Okay.
We just need to consolidate the 51% that we divided between the cylinder and us, right?
Okay.
So I think we can do it because Mr. Wickramasinghe is not there anymore. He abandoned his people. So I think they will see that we are the only other alternative or the best alternative they have, and they will go and vote this time. But answering your question, I think we can easily work with Mr. Anukumara Dissanayake because his key promises in his campaign was he wanted to end corruption.
Right.
He wanted to bring all the corrupted people to task. He wanted to recover the stolen assets. And the other thing he wanted to do was improve the economy. Now, who do you think has the best team that can do all four of those things? We have an experienced team who we have been working towards recovering the stolen assets through the STAR program of the UN. We have a very good idea of how corruption works in this Sri Lanka, and we have fielded a team that is capable of doing it. And when it comes to the economy, I think there's no one better than the team that we are presenting. So our goals are the same. If what Mr. Anukumar Disanayaka says is what he actually believes in, we have the same goals. We said the same things in our presidential campaign. It's just that people were just too angry. They just didn't want to listen. But our goals are the same. Yes, the way we reach or the roads that we are suggesting to do it might be different, but our end goals are the same. So, and I think we are actually presenting a more practical approach, a more practical route that they can take, that Mr. Anukumar Disanayaka can take to get to his destination. So, I think him as the president and Sajith as the prime minister and SJB in government would bring a better solution than most people would think. And
so there would be no clash.
I don't think there is a reason for clash, because if all of us are believing in what we are saying and what we are promising to the people, why should there be a clash? The only time there would be a clash is when one party is trying to deviate from
the plan.
Right? And which is a superb thing, because normally if the president and the government is on the same party, they will be working together, right? But in this way, you can have that system of checks and balances. President can check us, and we can keep him in check.
Even if the SJB is in the opposition.
Well, I'm saying we are getting a government.
Okay.
But no, even if we are in the opposition, I strongly believe
that you should work together.
I believe that should happen. I don't think we should let all these small parties dictate terms and give conditions.
Right.
Because if our goals are the same, I believe even if we don't make it to government, I think we should support as long as they're going in the right way, because at the end of the day, we want the same thing.
Absolutely. Because I also think that, there comes a time when you need to leave politics aside and work towards the betterment of the country, given that, the country is in a very fragile position right now. Moving on to my next question. Corruption has been a persistent issue in Sri Lanka. As an upcoming politician, I know you've been in politics for almost 14 years, but contesting the general elections, what do you suggest that we do to reduce or eradicate corruption?
I think the first thing we need to do is we need to digitize our whole financial system. We need to make sure that people cannot utilize ill-gain funds. And this has been done in India, right? There's no reason that we can't do it in Sri Lanka. We are a small nation. We can easily do it. And people should actually keep pushing, or at least the honest people should keep pushing the government to do it. Digitize first. Secondly, I think we need to reduce our public sector from about 1.6 million to about 600,000. I'm not saying kick them out, but we can better utilize them. We have so many government servants that are just sitting there doing nothing, and we have such a huge shortage on teachers in this country. We just need to retrain and repurpose this card, at least in the short run. Or we give them another technical education, and we help them start their own thing. Right? Because most of these are graduates, that means they actually can learn and has a brain on their shoulders. So we can support doing that. And the rest of the ones that we keep, the 600,000 that we keep, we need to pay them better.
Right.
We need to give them a reason to value their job. We need to give them a reason to be proud of their job, and we need to give them a reason to protect their job.
Yeah, my next question is, given that Sri Lanka has faced its worst economic crisis and people have faced the worst hardships ever, what would you suggest that we do differently? I mean, I know there are many things suggested by many economists. As someone in politics, do you have any new ideas, something we could do differently from what has already been said and done?
Well, very complicated question without a short answer. But for the sake of time, I think there are quite a few things that we can do, which has to start by government making better policies. The easiest thing we can do and the quickest thing we can do is improve our foreign revenue through our tourism industry, which we haven't even touched in the slightest. We have better resources, we have better places than Maldives or Malaysia or Indonesia or Thailand, but we are not utilizing it properly because we haven't had the proper people guiding it. I think last few years, even though I should say this, Harin was doing an okay job. He was doing better than everyone else, but we can do far better than this. So tourism would be a very quick solution. Then we need to change our policies so that foreign investors or FDIs, foreign direct investments, are encouraged to come here. We have to streamline the process, because even through the BOI, it's really hard to bring in an investment into this country, and we need to bring policy in where those investments are safeguarded, and labor unions don't get to play havoc as they have in the past. So we need to do that, because I don't know whether you know this, Toyota tried to come to Sri Lanka first, and that was blocked by, well, you know who, right? The labor union, who runs the labor unions in this country. And there were numerous other projects that were halted because of the former JVP action. So we need to change that mentality, and again, digitizing and making this corruption free, because one of the biggest problems the foreigners are having in coming into this country, investing, building factories, is the commissions that the ministers are asking for.
They don't have faith in investing here.
No,
because
that
of issues.
that and commissions. Like countries like China and India, like those companies, they can work around the systems, right? But countries like Japan, they really cannot offer a minister 10% or even 5%. They can offer maybe up to about 1% maximum as a consultation fee. But they can't offer, what these people are asking, because if they do it and they get caught in Japan, because they get evaluated every year, right? And if they get caught, they go to jail in Japan, right? For what do you call, enticing or helping corruption in other countries even.
And bribery.
Yeah, bribery, right? So because of that, so we need to change those things. And from the money we are making from allowing these companies to operate in Sri Lanka, we need to help our local producers, local industrialists come up to a competitive level as these multinational companies. Not to beat them. I always keep saying not to beat them, because that is not part of a free market economy. But we need to help them. Is more of a social democratic financial model, and help them until they get to that level. And after a few years, I think, a few months, our people are capable, they're strong, they're smart. I'm sure they can hold their own in the international arena. They just need a little bit of help.
What are you most passionate about in pursuing politics? What are your key policies?
3 things. I believe our education needs to change, because we are still in a 50-year-old system. Our education has not really understood the needs of the future, or today for that matter. We need to think globally. We have to stop thinking locally. We need to understand and have an education policy that is at least 20 or 50 years into the future, where we are actually training people capable enough to face and compete in the global market in the next 20 to 50 years. So education is going to be key for me, at least. I believe that is the root cause or the root solution for most of our problems. Economy, we briefly touched on, so that we need to come to that model. Enough of this far left economic policies or far right laissez-faire economic policies. We need to find a middle ground that suits us as Sri Lankans. And thirdly, and most importantly, I cannot stress this enough, we need to build a better society, not only for our women and children, but for everyone. We keep talking about a 2,500-year-old Sinhalese Buddhist culture and how good we are, and most of that is lip service. We talk a big game, but when you really get down to it, we can be far better. I'm sure you see that on the road,
Absolutely.
especially being a woman. I think this, right? 80% of the women and children that take public transport in this country or walks on the roads, 80% gets harassed mentally, physically, or verbally every day,
Right.
which is absurd, right?
And I think it's come to a point where women are expected to accept it and move on.
Exactly, and that shouldn't be the case. We have to change our legal system. We need to have harder laws, but more than that, we need to teach our kids from childhood that they need to be better, they need to do better, and they need to be better citizens and think of each other, because otherwise this is just absurd. That whole thing, inda hitana ratak, like you walk on the roads, this is not a inda hitana ratak. Forget, not because of the economy or the other situations. It's about the way our people are, right? This needs to change, and I think politicians, the government needs to take an active stand in this and start it from year one, start it with our kids, and actually push this. We can be better. Our people, when they go abroad, they behave better. We just need to get our hand in there and just really push and work on it. And I think, building this better country for all, we can start from Colombo.
All right, so moving on to my next question. You had almost 14 years of experience in politics. How has this experience shaped you to better understand the real issues faced by Sri Lankans?
This is the thing. Being young is great, being educated is great, but you need to have a certain amount of experience, which I learned when I entered politics, because everything you learned will help you get an understanding of what's going on. But then, when you actually enter, you realize there's far more things going on inside our system, and with our public servants, that people don't really have a proper grasp of. I think that's what the NPP government and the NPP president is learning now. He seems out of his depth right now, because he does not, because they haven't been in power, right? They haven't been, well, at least not for a long time, and even the time that they have, it has been very brief, which they actually gave up and said, that's it, I'm done, we are leaving. This was in 2000 or pre-2005, I think, when Mr. Anuradha Wimalaratne was a minister. And now I think he's starting to see it again. That's why he's appointing the same old people that have been in those key positions in the past regimes, because he's starting to understand that without a proper working knowledge of the systems over here, he's having a hard time running these organizations. So even if he brings in newly elected people that have, their whole list doesn't have any experience, they are going to be facing the same things. So what I have learned is how things work in Sri Lanka, and more importantly, how things don't work and why things don't work. And we need to understand that before we can move forward.
I think I agree with you. It's not as easy or as rosy as it looks, right? Because you've got to have a certain level of experience. What are your views on new faces, popular faces coming into politics with not sufficient educational background, no political experience? What are your honest views? No, I know, there's a fine line between anyone has the right to contest and anyone coming to contest not having the required experience or skill.
Yeah.
How do you see this?
Uh, anyone has the right to contest, but I don't know whether everyone should contest. But at the end of the day, ultimately, it's up to the people. They need to choose the right person for the right job. Um, See, I think this athletes, actors, actresses, singers, they're really great in their field,
Absolutely.
right? There is no question there whatsoever. I won't be. I can't. I won't be able to hold a candle up to them in their fields. But just because they are popular, I don't think they should be in politics, because politics is a very complicated and a very important aspect of a country. I'm not saying that what they are doing is not important, but this affects the whole country. So again, you need to have some grasp of what's going on and what's going on in the world, how our systems work, how the political systems locally and globally work, and you need to have a worldly knowledge of many things. So it's not easy. People like you, journalists who actually keep up with these things and knows what's going on, I think are better suited. um, Maybe not lawyers, because a lot of lawyers have been in Sri Lankan politics. Hasn't
I'm a
worked.
law grad, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No offense
But
taken.
yeah, because we have had quite a few lawyers. But I think people need to start choosing wisely
Mhm.
who their representative, and who's going to be deciding the future of their future and their children's and grandchildren's future. So we tend to vote as if this is like a popularity contest, or this is one of those reality shows that you have to pick the most, the most best looking person who puts up the best show. And I think that's where we went wrong all
Right.
this time. So now I think people just need to smarten up, wisen up, and see politics and their vote for what it actually is, which is a very important thing in their and the country's future. You shouldn't be playing around with it. You need to be smart.
I mean, it's the people who bring people to power.
Exactly.
So there's a great level of responsibility in people's hand and a great level of power in their hands as well. Moving on to my final question. So people watching this episode right now who would want to know, why would people vote for you?
Well, not only me. I think when they are voting, people should look at someone's education. Being young is great. Yeah, we need younger people, because globally the times are changing, and we haven't moved into that next stage of let's say financial and like evolution as a country,
Mhm.
because we have been always electing and putting dinosaurs in parliament. So to change that, I think youngsters should come in, educated people should come in. If they have experience, all the better.
Mhm.
And more than anything, you need to look at their past character and how they have behaved in their fields. And if there's someone who has been in politics, you need to see whether they have any allegations of corruption, and whether they have misused their power. And even if they are total newcomers, they should really look at proper people who you can
Mhm.
trust. And I think this needs to happen in all parties,
Right.
not only in my party. I
Mhm.
think we need a good mix of different opinioned people, but good people,
Mhm.
to have a good and strong, vibrant democracy. So I think people should look into that, not only in me, but in everyone they are going to vote for, in all parties. So in my party, SJB, Colombo District, number 2.
All right. Thank you for this conversation. I know you want to make a change, and Wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being a part of this conversation and sharing your views with our audience. We have come to the end of another conversation. Elections are around the corner. And obviously, like we've been discussing in this program, the power to change the future lies with the people. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and take care. Remember, if you like this content, subscribe to my channel, comment. Your feedback is always valued. And I'll be back with a new episode soon. Until then, stay safe.